Hi, everyone. This full moon in Libra is going to be intense. The reason I say this, all 7 traditional astrological planets are configured to this full moon or the T-square that's happening with Mars. We have the sun and the moon in opposition, normal for a full moon. They're both squaring Mars in Cancer, not always normal. We have Jupiter in trine with the moon at the time of this full moon in the configuration. And we have Venus, Saturn, and Mercury and the nodes in trine and sextile with Mars. That's all 7 traditional planets in astrology. This full moon is pivotal and important to all of us collectively as well as individually. This full moon is a reckoning of the heart. So it's not just about releasing. This is about cutting away the bullshit, the crapola, whatever you want to call it, that's been happening in plain sight. This is a reckoning point. This lunation brings in with it a wave of feminine rage. With Mars in Cancer, we have seen a rise in this phrase, as well as situations and conversations around women, specifically mothers. The reason I say this is because in my feed personally, I don't know about yours, I have seen an uptick in stories being passed around and passed on from states where it is now illegal to have abortions and all of that, regardless of what side of the fence you are on. When it comes to autonomy, which is the sun in Aries, right? It's with Chiron, woundedness around autonomy, independence, sovereignty, all of that. Libra, the full moon in Libra is about balance. Libra is also about justice, law, what is fair, what is right. And with Mars in Cancer, this has to do with action. This has to do with anger, resentment. This has to do with all of that. And I've seen an uptick and a rise in stories coming out of places where women are being incarcerated and put in prison for having miscarriages. A story that I just saw that was true, where a woman passed out, had a miscarriage, passed out, and then she was incarcerated because she miscarried her baby. That is a very sensitive time in all women's lives. And the fact that she is being thrown in jail because she could not carry a child, that is devastating. That is heartbreaking. And that, if that does not fuel rage, then I don't know what does. So these are the types of things that could be coming to the forefront during this full moon, around the time of this full moon and shortly thereafter. With Jupiter in the mix too, I do see that there could be conversations around legislature, around laws, because Jupiter has domain over laws and lawmakers and things like that. And the fact that it is in Gemini, to me, with the full moon in Libra, this could be conversations with states about the laws that they have or the laws that they have instituted or new laws or separate laws or something have you, something to be balanced, something to be fair. There's also, I've seen a law that is circulating from one of the southern states of penalizing men for not impregnating women, etc. It's interesting and strange the times that we live in. So that's all I'm going to say on that. But this is what I have seen. And with all 7 traditional astrological planets configured to this full moon, are configured with this full moon, not necessarily to it, but with it, I do see that this is a pivot point. This is a time, singularity, if you will, a point of no return. And after this, because this is the first full moon that we've had in the sign of Libra, that is not an eclipse for the last 2 years. These times are pivotal. These times of having regular lunations after eclipses have passed through these areas are pivotal and are breach points, singularity points, where things begin to unfold and happen. So that is what I'm saying. So with this lunation, it brings with it a wave of feminine rage. And we have seen this with Mars traversing the sign of Cancer for the last several months. We have seen it rise in the collective. We have seen the rise of the dark goddesses. We have seen the rise of anger and rage and women raging against the injustice that has been happening to them based on legislature and laws and things like that that have been going on. So this is not the kind that simmers quietly under pressure, right? This is the kind that forces us to take drastic, necessary action. We are pulling ourselves away from what no longer serves us and from what no longer nurtures or supports us. And it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, just like the birthing process. So it's raw, it's emotional, but it's honest. And that's what we're here for. Lunations in the sign of Libra are usually about rebalancing or harmonizing what has been imbalanced or in disharmony. And while that may happen, it's going to first require drastic, decisive action to cut away what no longer is needed, what no longer is nurturing us, what no longer is supporting us. And so on top of that, on top of all of this, it's a mini moon. And so the moon is sitting at apogee at the time of this lunation, and it is the farthest point from the Earth in the moon's elliptical orbit. This is inherently malefic as well, because these points of apogee and perigee denote hard times or strife, arguments, things like that. So the distance of the moon adds a layer of clarity. And yes, I know Mercury is in its fall / detriment in the sign of Pisces. It is moving forward, it is moving out, but it tends to fog logic and communication and all of that. So yes, I do understand that, but the moon being at apogee means that there is some type of clarity, some type of understanding that is there. And the moon in Libra, the sign ruled by Venus, right, is in Mars, or is in square with Mars, this full moon, T-square, right? And so with the sun with Chiron at the time of this full moon, this can bring up issues around autonomy. This can bring up uncomfortability, guilt, shame, vulnerability around independence, around, it's a term that is now in the collective and it is losing its luster, but sovereignty. People don't necessarily understand what that truly means, but I will say autonomy, independence, right? Those are words that can also describe sovereignty. They're not fully what describes sovereignty, but that is the other words that describe it as well. And so what this means with this T-square to Mars is that there is this strife, this struggle, this argument, or this dispute as it relates to independence and autonomy in terms of laws or lawlessness with this. And that's why I say this trine to Jupiter can help bring up the conversation to spark laws, legislature, things like that. So this is a reckoning, this is a realization, this is a moment of clarity, of rage, of action to correct and maybe overcorrect, especially with Mars involved with this, what is imbalanced. And so we're not alone in this, right? We are supported by some energy as well with Mercury, the North Node, Saturn, and Venus, all in Pisces, all in trine with Mars at the time of this full moon. So these energies are backing our long-term plans, our goals, our soul-led divine inspiration as well. And so Pisces may be dreamy, and it is deeply intuitive, and so it's spiritual. And with all of these planets as well in trine with Mars, there's a common thread. We are being supported to act with purpose, to act with authority, to connect with what will help us moving forward, and to have those conversations. But it's not rashly, right? This is with clarity, with depth, with precision, and with an awareness of our own inner truths as they relate to us individually as well as collectively, right? Because we can't get away from the collectiveness that is the sign of Pisces. So with Mars sitting in Cancer, it brings a weight, a longevity, and a kind of emotional intensity that's been simmering for a very long time. This Mars retrograde, as I said, has brought up the latent rage within the feminine psyche. And that protective Cancer shell is cracking. So, what has been held in, the pain, the anger, the grief, the rage, all of it is coming to the surface. It has to. It has to with this full moon. And with Mars approaching the final opposition with Pluto, we're looking at a power dynamic that is super hard to ignore or get away from. So many chapters will be closing, many chapters will be cut away, but also many more will bloom as well. So Pluto is sitting way out there in the vast, deep recesses of our solar system. So it doesn't move very quickly. Mars does. And so these two planets, when they oppose, we feel this at a visceral level. We feel the stifling. We feel the suppression. We feel the pressure of trying to rage against the machine, as I said in my blog, and act and to be heard. And we come up against the wall of the collective, right? Because right now with Pluto sitting in Aquarius, this is the collective, this is the masses, this is the whole of society as well, and the systems and the structures that seem too big to fight. But still, we fight. Because this full moon, like all full moons, is an opposition between the sun and the moon. So our consciousness, our self versus our emotional self, our ego versus our needs, our inner and sometimes outer masculine and feminine at odds. We could be at odds with another person at this time. And this tension is real. And the astrological soup that comes with it, it's not just soup. It is a layered ancient language. All 7 planets are configured in some way to this full moon and the subsequent aspects that are making there. So it's a dance between signs, right? Aspects. It's a web of meaning that adds depth, clarity, turmoil, and strife to our internal and our external experience. And so there is that really nice, as I said, trine to Jupiter, or to the moon by Jupiter, or to Jupiter by the moon, however you want to say it. And Jupiter is in Gemini. Yes, the sign of its detriment, but Jupiter brings hope no matter what. It brings expansion. It brings opportunity. And so Jupiter here can also help support us in movement, assertion, and decisive energy as it relates to the decisions that we're making going forward. So the T-square with Mars is heavy, but this is cardinal energy. Cardinal signs initiate through crisis. This is a crisis of realization. This is a moment of seeing things very clearly, very crisply, very precisely, and maybe for the first time in a long time. So where are we not supported is the question. Where are we not nurtured? What relationships have become one-sided, unbalanced, or simply broken? Where have we allowed our boundaries to be crossed to the point of anger and resentment? So some of us may find ourselves negotiating with other people, with ourselves, with the past even, and some of us trying to find our way back to that harmonious equilibrium that we want, right? Trying to find peace, if not with others, then at least within ourselves and within our own hearts. So the other things that are going on with this that can make this moon a little bit more intense, as if that wasn't enough with the T-square to Mars, is the quincunx or inconjunctions to Venus and Saturn, as well as Uranus. So this creates a yod, or known as the finger of God. But with the sun opposing this midpoint with Chiron, this creates something called a boomerang yod. So this energy does not just build, it explodes. This is where psychological shock can come in. This is where the confrontation, the truth we weren't ready for, but we have to face inevitably, the cognitive dissonance and the imbalance of objective truths and subjective obstinance. So this full moon is not one that we're just going to get over, that we're just going to move on from. This is one that's going to leave its mark. This isn't a situation that we just walk away from. This is something that requires sacrifice. So It shakes loose the rot, it exposes the imbalance, and it demands action, right? Not just any action, but deeply aligned soul-led action. So let's boil it up. Let's bring it to the surface. Let it break through. Let it rage. This full moon is not quiet. It is not subtle, but it is sacred. And it is a turning point. It is a reckoning. It is a release. So let it. A dear friend of mine who always says, sometimes we have to give in, not give up. And that statement is powerful. All right, so all 12 signs. So this full moon, we're going to be talking about the T-square between Aries, Cancer, and Libra. And then we're going to talk about the trines with Pisces. So for Aries and for Aries rising, this is happening in this T-square specifically is activating you, your first house, your seventh house, and your roots, your home, your fourth house. So there is pressure on you to reconcile your personal identity and who you are with emotional security as it relates to your partnerships and your place of living. There's a need to assert your independence there, but it may clash with where you come from. It may clash with who you're connected to. The support is going to come from behind the scenes, right? So and from the Pisces realm, this is spiritual release. This is closure or quiet knowing. This is solitude, maybe in your sanctuary or wherever it is that you go to get away from the world. And let your dreams and your inner wisdom guide you towards the next steps. And not every war needs a full-on battlefront, just so you're aware. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, this T-square is between your third, your sixth, and your 12th house. So this has to do with your communication, your daily life, your health, and your unconscious or subconscious, or where you pull away from the world, etc. So this can be mental stress specifically because 3, 6, and 12, these are mental houses. And so there could be miscommunications, there could be burnout that comes up now for you, the ways in which you speak to yourself and or others, your daily patterns, your routines, and your hidden or inner burdens that are at odds. Your nervous system may be overwhelmed at this time. And so with that, you can lean on your community, right? Because Pisces is your 11th house. And you can reach out to soul friends or vision-driven groups and let your bigger dreams and collective hopes hold you steady. You're not meant to do this alone. None of us are meant to do this alone, right? So just lean on the support that's offered via your friends groups, the people that are around you, your clique, if you will, and let them help support you. And then for Gemini and for Gemini rising, this T-square is between your second, your fifth, and your 11th houses. And so you may be feeling stretched really thin between your personal finances, your desires for self-expression or love, and your place in the collective itself. So this lunation might be highlighting some imbalances of giving versus receiving. What you can support or what you can use to support you is your career, right? So, or your calling. This let your intuition guide you and your professional steps forward. Rely on the career or your public reputation. There is support from spiritual or creative vocations, and trust your path. That is what I will say to you. So for Cancer and for Cancer rising, this is happening in your first house, your fourth house, and your 10th house. So this full moon hits your identity and your life direction very hard. You may feel pulled between personal needs, family dynamics, and professional obligations, right? Who you are in the world, your home, your family, your parents even, and who you are. This is a time to realign your trajectory with who you are versus what you do versus where you belong in the world. And something has to shift to restore that inner peace and outer integrity that you have. So the support can come from philosophy, spirituality, long-term visions, right? Seek out soul level truths and practices that help you rise above the noise. Take a trip, study. Deep introspection can help you kind of see the next right steps that you need to take for yourself in order to move forward. For Leo and for Leo rising, this is between your third, your ninth, and your 12th house. So your inner voice, your worldview, and spiritual compass may feel fractured or confused right now. You might not, you might be questioning what's real, what's not real. My faith, do I believe this? What's going on here, right? So these are all questions that Leos can have. Now, the support is going to come from emotional truth, deep healing, right? Soul level transformation. So this is asking you to lean into that intensity, lean into what you feel most afraid to face, because through vulnerability comes true power, right? So that is what I will say for Leo risings. For Virgo and Virgo risings, this is your second house, your 8th house, and your 11th house. And so there's tension between what you have, what you owe versus what you're owed, right? Especially with that 8th house, and how you fit into the broader collective, right? Finances or trust issues in groups may surface. The way that you can have support or find support would be through soulful partnerships that bring grace, allow for emotional honesty and mutual support in your relationships. And you may find balance through love, through therapy, or conscious connection with other people. And for Libra and for Libra rising, this is happening in the 1st, the 7th, and the 10th house. So the focal point, you are the focal point, right? Because the full moon is in your sign. And this brings big realizations about your identity and your self-worth, but it's also clashing with your public expectations and relational demands. Where you can find solace, reprieve, support would be through spiritual acts of service, your daily ritual, and compassionate self-care. How are you taking care of yourself? Right? So even mundane routines in this instance can become sacred if you allow them to, and prioritize healing over perfection is what I would say for this. So for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, this is happening in your 6th house, your 9th house, and your 12th house. And so crisis may show up as burnout, as existential dread or existential doubt, or suppressed grief at this time can show up for you. So something in your belief system is no longer supporting the rhythms of your life, and they need to change. The support comes from 5th house themes, right? So creativity as medicine, especially with Pisces as your 5th house, play, art, romance, or joy-centered expression can bring relief. So trust in the power of beauty and your personal passions to heal your system. That is what I have for Scorpio. For Sagittarius, this is happening between your 5th house, your 8th house, and your 11th house. And so there may be tension between your need for love and self-expression, as well as the weight of deeper emotional ties and your social connections, right? Your friends. It may feel like something or someone has to be released or has to be cut out. The support can come from your 4th house. And so this is your home, your ancestry, your ancestors, right? Where you come from on that ancestral line can really help you. Emotional roots that will nourish you. And lean into softness and lean into rest and intuitive inner security, right? So what's private is sacred right now. So holding things close to your chest and allowing yourself to grieve, allowing yourself a moment of grace would be preferred now and would be really supportive and healing for you. So for Capricorn and for Capricorn rising, this T-square is your 4th house, your 7th house, and your 10th house. And so the pressure between your personal life, your partnerships, who you're partnering with, and your public role hits a peak point. And this is where have you been sacrificing in one area for another, in one place for another, and a chapter is ready to close here. So the support that you can have comes from gentle conversations, journaling, intuitive learning are your allies at this time. Let poetic thought and sacred speech guide the repair process and express your truth with softness and gentleness. So for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is happening between your 3rd, your 6th, and your 9th house. This is overthinking, this is burnout, this is disillusionment around your path. And it may hit a head, it may come to a head, come to a boiling point. Something needs to be restructured in how you communicate and how you live and what you believe. And so the support can come from your values, anchored to what you truly need, right? So not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually, because Pisces is your second house. And worthiness is not something to earn, it is something to remember. So keep that in mind as we go through the week. So for Pisces and for Pisces rising, and this is your second house, your fifth house, and your eighth house. And so the way that you value yourself, you express love and engage with others in vulnerable spaces is coming under fire. Financial or emotional entanglements may come to the surface to be rectified, released, and let go of, or may just come to a head, boiling point, and explode out. The support comes from you. You are your own anchor, your intuitive knowing, your body, your inner world. These are not just valid, they are powerful, right? You don't need validation to know who you are, you just are. So trust in your truth and let yourself lead from within. So that is what I have for all 12 signs. And I do hope that you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe, all of the above, and leave a comment down below if this resonates with you. All right. Bye, everyone.